The Von Erichs, unfortunately, are mostly remembered for the misfortune surrounding the Von Erich boys. It's very telling that when you do any kind of online search on the Von Erich family, the top results always centre around the incidents and demise of the family. While the end of the Von Erichs is certainly an interesting and cautionary tale, it is a shame that the body of work the Von Erichs put in at World Class Championship Wrestling is an afterthought. Family patriarch Fritz Von Erich was one of the best brawlers of his generation. Kevin Von Erich had an incredibly good run of matches with gentleman Chris Adams and also defeated Bruiser Brody for the NWA American Heavyweight Championship. David Von Erich was the breakout star of the family, with the likes of Ric Flair, Jim Ross and Harley Race saying he could have been a world champion if his life wasn't cut so short. The modern day warrior Kerry Von Erich had the most championship success out of all the brothers, capturing the NWA World Heavyweight title from Ric Flair and also winning the Intercontinental belt in the WWF. Mike and Chris Von Erich would not reach the same success as their brothers, but we will talk about that later in this video as we explore the legend of the Von Erich family. Family patriarch Fritz Von Erich began wrestling in the 50s after receiving training from Stu Hart. He assisted in the efforts to rebuild Japanese wrestling in the 60s and also was an NWA mainstay. Towards the end of the 60s, he became the promoter for the Dallas territory while effectively overseeing Houston and San Antonio also. Fritz gained ownership of the world famous Dallas Sportatorium, and by the mid 70s, Fritz cut down in his in-ring work as his sons became more prominent in the Dallas territory. His promotion changed its name to World Class Championship Wrestling. There have been many stories for many years saying that Fritz forced his sons to wrestle, and these stories have came from multiple sources within the business. Kevin Von Erich has denied this, saying that Fritz didn't make his sons do anything they didn't want to do, and he was a good father. Nonetheless, Fritz's sons would have a stranglehold on World Class, but certainly not in the way maybe a Hulk Hogan did in WCW or the way John Cena once did in the WWE. No, the fans welcomed the Von Erich children with open arms. It can't be overstated just how popular the Von Erichs were in Dallas, and you just have to see their entrances into the Sportatorium to see the reactions that they got. They were absolutely loved in World Class. It's easy to say that Fritz was pushing his own kids in his own promotion, and they only got where they were thanks to their dad, but the Von Erichs were just so over in World Class that it would have been crazy and costly to stop their momentum. Kevin and David were athletic kids in school, having a keen interest in football. Kevin would wrestle during football off-seasons, and he set the tone for what was to come from the remaining Von Erichs once they made their way to the ring. Kevin was loved by the women, he had the toned body, he was a good looking kid, and he was able to work a fast-paced athletic style of match. Around a year after Kevin made his pro debut, David made his way to World Class, dropping out of college to wrestle full time. He was gifted in the ring with great psychology and promo skills to match. David was seen as the best wrestler of the Von Erich kids. As mentioned earlier, the likes of Ric Flair, Harley Race, even Shawn Michaels and Triple H have all stated that he was the Von Erich that was seemingly going to rise to the next level. Even though David started wrestling after Kevin was not around during football season, so David was able to get an incredible amount of experience in a quicker time than his brother Kevin. David may not have had the charisma of Kevin, but he sure made up for it in wrestling ability. David and Kevin tagged together for around 2 years before brother Kerry joined them. Kerry was extremely muscular, had a great physique, was a good looking guy, and had some, not all, but some of the in-ring ability David had. He was the kind of in-between guy of the three, not a standout in any category for sure, but still very capable. The Von Erich boys' most famous feud in world class was against the Freebirds, and it truly was one of the greatest feuds in the history of wrestling. Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy had got together in Mid-South, and after adding Buddy Jack Rogers to the group, they'd done some work in Memphis before making their way to world class to begin their legendary feud with the Von Erichs. The Freebirds versus the Von Erichs truly was the match made in heaven. Kerry was the modern day power athlete, Kevin was the agile and fast high flyer, and David was the tough and well versed grappler. On the other side you had Michael P.S. Hayes, one of the best talkers in the business. Then you had the brute force of Terry Bam Bam Gordy, and you had the worker Buddy Jack who could sell and sell for entire matches to make those hot tags even more special. The feud became a matter of Texas pride, with the Freebirds from Georgia coming into Dallas and threatening to take out the sweethearts of the territory. In the midst of the Fabulous Freebirds feud, tragedy struck. David Von Erich was on tour in Japan when he passed away at only 25 years old. There have been mixed stories about how he passed. The Von Erichs at the time said it was caused by ruptured intestines, while Ric Flair mentioned in his autobiography it was caused by an overdose, with the evidence being removed by Bruiser Brody. Both Kevin Von Erich and world-class referee David Manning both attest to a heart attack theory. Mike Von Erich stepped in at this point to replace David in the Freebirds feud. Mike didn't want to be a wrestler, he wanted to be a cameraman for the company, and his only involvement in wrestling up to this point was when Ric Flair insulted him in the run-up to a planned NWA World title match with David Von Erich, which didn't happen. As you could imagine here, Mike maybe felt some pressure in stepping into David's position. This does a lot also to back the theory that Fritz may have been forcing his sons to wrestle. On May 6, 1984, the David Von Erich Memorial Parade of Champions was held at the Texas Stadium, attracting over 45,000 fans to the wrestling event. The attendance here, which was the biggest for a wrestling event up until this point, just goes to show the popularity and respect fans had for the Von Erichs, as people flocked to pay tribute to David and also see a jam-packed show filled with NWA stars, along with Fritz coming out of retirement to take on the Freebirds, along with Kevin and Mike. In the main event, Kerry Von Erich would be facing Ric Flair for the NWA Championship, and Kerry was successful in capturing the belt in what was the biggest title win among all the Von Erich boys. While it definitely was a feel-good moment and the crowd were on their feet when Kerry won the belt, some were critical of this title change when it happened, and in retrospect, those critics were probably right. It was an emotional night for sure, and it made for a great day for the Von Erichs, but most of their peers were still reeling over the passing of David, including the Freebirds, and it was almost as if because David didn't get to win the NWA title as scheduled, the committee was just handing the title to Kerry. Some in the business thought Ric Flair was passing the torch to Kerry, and Kerry would be a long-term champion, but this was not the case. Kerry dropped the title just 18 days later, and it's been said that he was unresponsible and he was already missing dates during his short title reign. In September of 1985, Mike Von Erich popped his shoulder while on tour in Israel. Mike came back to Texas to have shoulder surgery, where he developed a high fever during and after the operation. He was later diagnosed with toxic shock syndrome, a rare but life-threatening condition caused by bacteria getting into the body and releasing harmful toxins. Mike made it out of hospital, but he suffered some brain damage as a result of his illness. He stepped away from the ring, but when tragedy struck once again, he would find himself once again in the squared circle. In 1986, World Class broke away from the NWA. WWE was growing tremendously and the NWA was beginning to fail. The AWA were promoting shows on their own, and Fritz Von Erich thought that World Class could do the same thing, even when people close to him advised it was a bad idea. World Class turned their American champion Rick Rude into their world heavyweight champion, and soon enough you'd better believe the Von Erichs would be going after the title. On June 4th, 1986, Kerry Von Erich was in a motorcycle accident that nearly ended his life. He suffered a dislocated hip and a badly injured right leg and foot. According to Kevin, Kerry tried to walk prematurely on the injured foot before it was fully healed, resulting in further damage that led doctors to eventually amputating his right foot. The amputation was kept secret until after Kerry's passing. It was also a huge blow to World Class, as the company was practically being built around Kerry at this time, and the man just was never the same after the incident. With Kerry out of action for a while, Mike, who had suffered from toxic shock syndrome, remember, again stepped in to replace one of his brothers. To be honest, looking at footage from this period shows that Mike wasn't really ready for this pressure all over again. Mike had already struggled with the pressures of having to, quote, be David, and now he was going back into the ring to step in for Kerry. Paraphrasing here the note that he left before taking his own life, Mike said he was tired of embarrassing the family, and he didn't want to bring any more shame to the Von Erichs. Mike took a mixture of alcohol and sleeping aids, and his body was located 4 days after the note was found. Then we have Chris Von Erich. He was the youngest of the Von Erich family, but he was also unable to make it to the dizzying heights that his brothers did. Due to his small size, suffering from asthma, and having extremely brittle bones that were prone to breaking, Chris was never able to reach the success his father or his brothers reached, even though he had tremendous heart and an unwavering love for professional wrestling. He did get involved in the ring on a few occasions and even tagged up with other Von Erich brothers, but when the brothers had to endure watching his bones bend and snap during matches, it was decided he would not be allowed to compete in the ring. In the end, Chris was frustrated that he could not be like his older brothers. He was also upset about Mike's passing, and Chris Von Erich also took his own life 18 days before his 22nd birthday. The loss of these Von Erich brothers, along with pulling out of the NWA, booking poor champions, along with distasteful segments, which included Fritz collapsing in hopes of media coverage, and also at one point introducing Lance Von Erich, who wasn't even a blood relative of the family, all of these things led to the slow demise of World Class. Nobody could stop the WWF either at this point, even when World Class tried to cross-promote supercards with other promotions. At one point, World Class had an incredible amount of momentum, presented a great fresh TV product that was in many ways before its time, but as time went on the wheels fell off. A good match from around this time though happened at Super Clash 3, an event that featured AWA champion Jerry Lawler versus WCCW champion Kerry Von Erich. Eventually, Jerry Jarrett took over the company and World Class became the USWA. Kerry Von Erich would make his way to the WWF, known as the Texas Tornado. He was huge, he had a good look, and his wrestling style fitted in nicely to what the WWF was presenting at the time. Still keeping his amputated foot a secret, Kerry became quite popular in the WWF. He defeated Mr. Perfect to become the Intercontinental Champion at SummerSlam 1990 and went on to have a 2-year run with the company. But he left around August of 92 after being left off the SummerSlam event in London. Kerry was very obviously on the juice throughout most of his career, and after his motorbike accident, he became dependent on medication. This led to Kerry also having issues with the law. After violating his probation and getting indicted on a charge that would have likely led to an extensive prison sentence, Kerry took his own life in February of 1993 on Fritz's ranch in Texas. He had told his dad he was going out for target practice. Bret Hart has stated that he had gotten close to Kerry Von Erich, and Kerry had told him at one point that he wanted to follow his 3 late brothers, David, Mike and Chris. even telling Bret Hart that they were calling him. The story then we have painted is definitely bleak and extremely sad. The Von Erich family once had Dallas in the palm of their hands, selling out the Sportatorium constantly as the fans got seriously behind them, almost to an extreme level. The sons were all so young and had so much success, but they also had little guidance and no reins put on them. The backstage wrestling culture and lifestyle back then was also very, very different to what it is now, and it was easy to give in to temptations without ever really worrying about ramifications. By and large, the Von Erich sons strayed and paid a price. The fabled Von Erich Curse is a ridiculous term to paint the story with. It's practically turned into clickbait these days. There was no curse. There was definitely unfortunate events, but there was also poor decisions being made underneath poor mentorship. Of all the Von Erich sons, only Kevin is alive today. He was able to accept a WWE Hall of Fame induction for the whole Von Erich family in 2009.